Welcome to Cigar City Radio, episode number 19. I'm your host, Randy Ojeda, and making the magic happen, a man who loves to fiddle, Jason Solanez.
I would fiddle many diddles to get a little sleep.
Just a little?
Just a little diddle.
Just a little diddle. Just a little diddle on the fiddle.
Yeah. Fiddle to diddle.
Yeah. If you like the show, you can follow us on iTunes or Stitcher. You can also review and rate us on iTunes. If you did that, we'd really appreciate it. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Cigar City Radio, and you can email us at cigarcityradio@gmail.com. We're about a month away from our first ever Noche Buena party taking place during South by Southwest, and we've got 15 bands on the lineup. 15 bands, Jason.
That's a lot of bands.
That's a lot of bands. Jason, you want to run through them all?
Yeah, why not? We got Hockey Dagged.
Oh, yeah.
We got Detective.
DTCV.
High Waisted. Send Medicine. Jackson Boone and the Ocean Ghosts. The Undercover Dream Lovers. Dirty Dishes. Warbly Jets. Field Trip. Shark Muffin. Fruit and Flowers. Tall Juan.
The tallest of Juans.
Plastic Pinks. And Veiny Hands.
Tampa's own Veiny Hands.
Tampa's own.
Yeah. And when's that happening, Jason?
That is happening on Wednesday, March 15th at Stay Gold. It will be going on from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. There is no cover, but make sure that you're 21 or up.
And if you want to go to the show, we recommend that you RSVP online. We're getting a lot of responses, and if you RSVP, we'll get you on the wait list and get you priority admission if there's a line. So you want that.
Oh, I want that.
Yeah, for sure.
I want that for you.
This is the night that your Abuela has been waiting for. Search Noche Buena Party South by Southwest on Facebook events or RSVP at cigarcitymanagement.com/SXSW. Our guest on this episode is singer-songwriter and fiddler Sara Watkins. She was one of the founding members of the bluegrass group Nickel Creek. She also plays ukulele and guitar, and she's worked with greats like Led Zeppelin's John Paul Jones, Jackson Browne, and Fiona Apple, and she's shared the stage with some of the greats in music. For somebody so accomplished, she's incredibly down-to-earth and super chill. We recorded this one at the Green Room of the State Theater, which, if you've never been back there, is kind of a...
terrifying.
Yeah, it's dark and dingy place.
Dark. The lamp looks like it's going to catch fire.
I don't know if I'm revealing too much here, but the State Theater actually has a hole behind the stage that the drummer has to actually sort of crawl through to get onto the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a manhole, literally.
It literally is a man or a woman hole. It depends on who's drumming.
All right.
You know, we're all inclusive. Michelle's not here to correct us, but we are still all inclusive. So it was a little dark and dingy in there. We had one sort of interrogation looking light. That was all that they had in the room. But it was still a very wonderful and friendly and bright interview. So
she's a kind lady, and she's worked with Jackson Browne, so
yeah,
I feel like I should have bowed to her as I would Jackson Browne.
Yeah, and she put on an awesome performance later that night, and probably many people would bow to her after that.
Yes.
For sure. So here it is, episode 19.
Oh, no. Well, that makes it weird. No, I went to the Watkins Family Hour in Athens. And so...
Oh, great.
Yeah. So I was like, try to get Sara on the show. That would be awesome. I want to talk about that experience because that was one of the best shows. I drove on a Monday night to get up there for the Tuesday show, went to the show, and immediately had to drive back to go to like work the next morning. But it was awesome. Yeah, with Fiona, Glenn, all of them. It was great. So
such a fun tour.
Yeah, I could imagine like being on that tour because that show alone was incredible. So
yeah, it was great. I mean, we started thinking we would just do a few cities. We would do like 2 or 3 shows in towns where we had friends, like New York, Chicago, Nashville, LA, Seattle, or something like that, you know. And we would do 2 or 3 shows, invite some friends out to play songs, just to like because that's what we do in LA. It's, this monthly residency is just my brother and I and our friends in the band, and then we bring a couple people down to play a song or two or sit in, do something. It's pretty casual, but we practice. And so to do it on the road, we wanted to keep that spontaneity happening and not just get into the typical touring habit, which can be like find a great set list, stick with it for a week, tweak it a little bit, and do the exact same show or like a similar run through. We wanted every night to be totally different.
And
so,
you definitely got that as like an audience member. It felt like just a giant jam session. Like the fact that you guys looked like you were having fun, I think translates for us to be able to sit there and be like, this is awesome. It doesn't feel like a show. Like, cause I think you can go in as an audience member. It could be your favorite band or whatever. You sit there and you still feel like a spectator. You don't really truly engage. But when it feels like you guys are having fun, then it makes us feel like we're having fun.
It's a really reactive band.
Yeah.
So that if Benmont Tench is playing, reaching for new things on the piano, the bass player is going to react, and my brother is going to react on guitar, and I'm going to sing differently, and everyone sings and plays to each other in a way that isn't like anchored in an album arrangement. It's just anchored in like our arrangement, but with a lot of flexibility that we're not trying to replicate a record or anything.
Definitely.
It was awesome. A fun tour.
Those are some of the best performances, though, especially like you said, having a band that can flow and react.
Yeah.
I mean, does that just come with, years of playing together? I mean, you and your brother, I'm sure, have been playing together long before you started the band, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we grew up in Nickel Creek together, so we've played really, really precise and intricate things, and we've gone the other direction, and we play new songs. We play a lot, and we live close together and collaborate on different projects. So there's definitely a lot of overlap in our careers, but I think there's a sensibility in certain musicians that you find a kinship that works and makes that kind of reactive playing really compatible.
That's amazing. So you started, or I don't know if you started it, but Nickel Creek formed when you were 18, right?
I was 8.
You were 8.
Yeah. My brother, Sara Watkins, and me, and Chris Thiele, and Scott Thiele, Chris's dad, was playing bass with us for the first 11 years. And we were just kids playing together in a kids band.
Wow.
And doing, local museum openings and things like that, and street fairs, bluegrass festivals. And then around the time I was 17 or 18, we made our first CD on a label, Sugar Hill, and that was Alison Krauss produced it, and we had some success with a couple of songs that allowed us to tour for a real long time, and that just kind of became all of our it was our whole career at that point. The band took up all of our time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And for years and years. And so we decided to put it on the shelf around 2007 and just to make way for other projects, like to, have a chance to do solo records and play with other people and discover inspiration outside of the band.
Definitely.
And it was a great decision. We love each other so much, and it was really nice that we all felt that we were in a place where we could step away from it.
And step away with no hard feelings,
Yeah.
Yeah. And your first solo record you worked on with John Paul Jones, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How did you meet him?
I met John at Merle Fest, which is a bluegrass festival in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. He was hanging out with Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings, and he's a mandolin player. He plays on all of that Zeppelin stuff.
Yeah.
Mandolin.
All that Zeppelin 3 stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's a obviously an incredible musician. Mm. And so we knew him over the years, did some touring and various little side projects together. And when Nickel Creek was playing the Cambridge Folk Festival in England, he was hanging out and watching, and after the show he approached me about, once you guys take the hiatus, you should make a solo record and I should produce it.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought he was just being nice and supportive and stuff, but we kept in touch about it, and the momentum continued, and he was just such a prince and a dream to work with. I really I'm so grateful that he was the first guy I got to work with on a solo record.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, when somebody from Led Zeppelin calls, I mean, you have to say yes, right?
Yeah, he's not the kind of person who you are always aware of who he is, of his reputation when you're talking to him. He's very kind and down to earth, and you very, very quickly are put to ease. But then every once in a while you like glance over and get the profile of it, and you're like, oh right, you're John Paul Jones. Right. And he'll tell these great stories. It's pretty, I
can imagine
great.
He's got some legendary stories.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get much more rock and roll than Led Zeppelin, you know.
They were the first band to have a plane.
Yeah.
The first.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, we should just have a plane.
Yeah. Well, and there's a legendary story where they had to cancel a concert here in Tampa, Florida at the old Sombrero, the Raymond James, or what is now Raymond James Stadium. Mm-hmm. And I think they played 2 songs. It was 2 or 3 songs. And then the rain started pouring like it does very often here in the summer in Florida, and they just got right under the jet and peaced out. Because like when it rains here, it's almost like hurricane, like almost every rainstorm is like hurricane level, like insane. So I could see a couple guys from England would have been freaked out by.
It gets tricky with gear too.
That's also true.
With gear and getting electrocuted.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, you do have to be safe about that.
The electrocution thing is real.
Yeah.
But fans don't care about that.
No.
They want to see you electrocuted.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, I'm sure you've probably played a ton of outdoor shows that.
We played a festival once a long time ago where it was raining and they had to cut the sound, and this was in Mississippi. Maybe it's called the Beale Street Festival or something.
Yeah.
And our guitar tech came down off the stage, so they didn't cut the whole PA, but they were like pulling the gear off of the stage, getting it out of the rain to try and save all the, mics and electronics and stuff. But our guitar tech chief brought this little, 57 vocal mic down, and we played acoustically like in the crowd, and he just kind of held it up so that, because there was a large amount of people watching, so that we could amplify a little bit. And he told us like years later that he was just feeling like zap, zap, zap going down through his arm and his legs, and he was just taking it. But it's for real.
Well, I mean, with a name like Chief,
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to take it. That's crazy. Yeah. What a name for a guitar tech.
Pretty good.
Yeah, right on to Chief.
He's a good chief.
Yeah. So I'm amazed that you started making music when you were 8. You've been in.
Like bad music, but yeah.
Still music, probably better music than I was making when I was 8. But you've been in the spotlight for so long, yet you seem like a very normal person. How does that happen?
Well, I think spotlight is a very like maybe flashlight.
Okay, all right.
It's in bluegrass. It's a very small pool of people.
Yeah, it's not.
And the thing is, like, I feel really lucky that I grew up in a musical community where the best people, the legendary people, were also like 60-year-olds. Where there were some shining stars in their 20s and stuff, but it was mostly like you are thrilled to get to see Del McCoury.
Yeah.
Like a 68, 70, 80-year-old man. Like you are thrilled to get to see these legends who've been around and whose life has overlapped with so many others that you respect and who contain all these songs, and that's a great tradition to grow up in. There are always people around you who know way more than you and are way better than you and have been around and can school you pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way to grow up, to not just. I mean, we had our fair share of compliments and accolades, and I'm sure that we listened to them too much in our time. But there's always this huge respect for the elders in the musical community.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a humbling thing, to be young and learning your instrument and then see somebody that's been playing for 40, 50 years and and their, how they approach music is a totally different thing.
Totally, yeah. And I mean, instruments are humbling. Like they're humiliating. Like fiddle is humiliating to play. It's an incredible triumph when you play in tune or in time, and to do them both, and then to make good choices and to improvise and have it all come out the right way. It's such a drag because like I love it, but it's not easy to do everything right all the time or do everything as you would like. And so there are plenty of ways to be humbled.
I'm sure there are. Yeah, that's crazy. But lately, the last record, you've been a lot less bluegrass. I think it's fair to say, more sort of moving into like the pop sphere. Is that fair to say?
I mean, yes. I don't. It's definitely a little more ruckus than it was.
I love that term, ruckus.
But the bluegrass that I grew up in was not strict bluegrass. It was pretty progressive to begin with. From California, by the time anything gets to us, it's been modified a lot. So my first understanding of bluegrass instrumentation was just, these bands that I'm watching are playing, old country songs. They're playing Beatles songs. They're playing, I don't know, like Prince or something. Like they're playing stuff, and it's not what their repertoire is not dictated by their instrumentation. And that was something that we tried to do in Nickel Creek, as much as and we didn't try to. It just kind of happened, I think, because of the foundation. And this new record has a little bit less fiddle on it than my previous two. Mm. But sonically, it's a lot cleaner than my second record. And I think I wasn't trying to go away from anything necessarily. I wanted it to sonically fit the intent of the emotion in the lyrics.
Yeah.
And there are some instruments that absolutely would not fit in that, or would take away or distract or be too strong of a character.
Yeah.
And so you just try and find the right people to play the instrumentation that will get the lyric across.
And the album you're referring to, your most recent one, was Young in All the Wrong Ways, right? And that, like, I've heard described or even compared to like a Fleetwood Mac's like rumors type thing, where it's like, kind of this post breakup, post like label situation album,
Oh wow.
Is that like?
Yeah. Well, I made it when I was between labels and I was between management, and it was time to make a record. So I asked my friend Gabe Witcher to produce it, and we went in the studio and tracked it in like 12 days. I think we did in Los Angeles. And
right
then
on.
there was some overdubbing. We put some strings on it and overdubbed some harmony vocals with friends when they were in town, that kind of thing. But it's not a breakup album necessarily, although I've said there in some ways there are a couple songs that feel like I'm breaking up with, parts of myself or something like that. But I think that to me the album is about transitions, mm-hmm. and some of the things that I was going through when I was writing this album was some of the things were just trying to be open to reconsidering things and to not get too comfortable. Not that I'm looking for turbulence as much as I identified the comfort that I was feeling in my life as just being fine with things and not necessarily moving forward. And the world changes far too quickly to not try and have to engage. And I didn't want to just find myself in some accidental ruts philosophically, in terms of like socially, the way that I live life, spiritually. I wanted to make deliberate choices and really thoughtfully consider some things that I'd sort of been putting off considering for a while. And I think that stirred up a lot of things in my life. And at the same time, you know, there's a lot of turbulence going on around me. And so for me, this album is about navigating those kinds of transitions and trying to boldly move forward even when you don't really know where you're going, but just to take a step and not stall out.
Yeah. So it's like you challenged yourself to step outside your comfort zone a little bit and find those ways to transition to new things.
Yeah. I wanted to experience any anxiety or nervousness. I wanted to not take that as a sign of caution, but rather a sign of, oh, I'm anxious. It's because I'm doing something I haven't done yet, or I'm going somewhere. I'm not repeating myself. I'm taking risks.
Yeah.
And not willy-nilly, just, you know, stupid risks, but, you know, good risks.
I read on like a few reviews and stuff, they've actually like referred to it almost as like coming of age, and I think people tend to like peg that as like a teenager story of like coming to age, of coming to like an adult, but like far often people neglect to understand that coming of age can happen at any time. And when you're discussing transitions and everything, do you think that was cathartic for you to actually write those songs, go through what you were going through, and then the 12 days of tracking, listening to it, now touring it? Is it putting that stuff into better perspective and you getting a better like grip and everything on those things that you might have gone through?
Absolutely.
So would you consider it your sense of like coming of age, even though it's not, you know, like a revolutionary growth or whatever?
I think coming of age to me, I'm not really sure what that means. It feels to me like a final thing, like, oh, you're finally this, or you've reached now you're this age and you're fine. And this is, to me, it's like, oh, you were a kid and now you're a grown up.
Yeah.
And instead, I think in Young in All the Wrong Ways, in the title and in the song, I feel like we are, like you said, it's not an age-defined thing. Like, ideally, we are all progressing in a way that, like, every 5 years or 10 years, whatever it is, 5 days, you are able to be who you are then, and not just, you know, say the same jokes you said 5 or 10 years ago, repeat the same phrases that you identified with back then, and the same, like, I don't know, I felt like I was in danger of just staying where I was forever, and I don't want that. I want to, in 5 years, I want to be evolved down the road. I want to be a better person. I want to have new thoughts, and I don't want to think what I think now for the rest of my life. So how do I get to that place? And it doesn't happen on its own. I'm a creature. I'm a comfort creature. I like to know things, and I like to be cozy and fine, and I like the security of knowing what, and I like repetition, even if it's not efficient. And so it takes a little bit of effort for me to try and move forward sometimes.
Yeah. I wish more people thought like that. Like, I wish more people felt like you did and wanted to get out of their comfort zones, because I feel like people really do get stuck doing a certain thing. Or
yeah, I do too. Yeah, but it definitely does take effort. And
yeah, you
know, I don't have kids. I feel like there are a lot of things that make it. I travel a lot. I don't have a job that repeats itself every day or is pretty, you know. And I think that even having a job where my everyday is different, I still seek out those consistencies.
Yeah.
And I imagine if I had a kind of job that was in the same place every day and had similar tasks or responsibilities, that I would absolutely just want to just cruise. Because I mean, you're just kind of that's so easy to imagine doing. I'm totally that person who would be inclined to do it. And I'm glad that that I've been forced to travel to places that I probably wouldn't have gone to, and I've been forced to solve some problems that I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And it's taught me that I really like to jump in the deep end. I really like to just say yes and figure out how to do it later, because it's kind of the only way that I do anything.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you say that, because like looking at your career so far too, it's like you've done a lot of different projects or worked with different people. Like you toured with the Decemberists and like with Jackson Browne and all these people that, you know, I guess somebody else without your sense of adventure, I guess, might have stuck in one path. Whereas
I'm also very lucky to have those opportunities.
That's true. But you take those opportunities. Not everybody would, you know.
I think most people would take the opportunity to play with Jackson Browne. I think that's pretty reasonable to expect from people.
Sure.
But with the Decemberists, that's a great example where I had, at that point in my life, my world had pretty much just been the Nickel Creek Machine, which was very streamlined socially and creatively. We were pretty focused on details. It was very intricate music. And then I went and did my first record, and I tour managed myself and 3 other band members, like grown-ass men. and they really, you know, slummed it with me, and I'm so grateful. But I was exhausted after a year and a half of that, because that was a steep learning curve. I did babysat in Nickel Creek with a tour manager until then. And so that was a very big learning curve. And then I was really tired. It was time to make another record, my second record, and I didn't have anything to say because I hadn't been living any kind of life, because I'd been touring for a year and a half. And I was exhausted, and I got the call to that Decemberists were looking for a female fiddle player who could sing. Basically, they needed female harmonies, and they wanted a fiddle player. Yeah. And so it was perfect. I got to join their band for 7 months, and it was a very, very different experience than anything I'd had. It was the first time that I got to be a sideman, which I love being, and it gave me the relief. I didn't have any responsibilities. I had to be there at sound check and at show. I didn't have to know anything. I didn't have to know how far the venue is from the hotel. I didn't have to book any transport. I didn't have to spend like 3 hours price lining the best hotel options in, Florida.
You just got to show up and play.
I just got to show up and play, and I got to read books, and I got to practice and listen to things, and because of that, I actually, a lot of my second record was I started writing it on that tour, because I actually had the bandwidth and I have had things that I wanted to say at that point, but I needed a break. So it was great to be able to work and kind of take a load off at the same time. Yeah. But the reason I say that, they assumed, they were just like, oh, you can play baritone electric guitar solo on the single, right? And I don't I especially back then, I did not play guitar, and I play guitar a little bit now, but especially back then, I could strum a few chords, and that was it. And I was like, sure. And so then I learned this baritone guitar solo that I got to play every night. It was so fun. I got to hit a drum. I never get to hit drums. By the end of the tour, I had to, even learn some piano stuff, and it was really fun, because they just assumed, like, oh yeah, you can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And
but you did.
Because they assumed it of me, I figured it out, and that was a very big learning experience to me, that I like it when people assume that you can do something, because if no one expects anything of you, why would you do anything,
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you got to read a lot on that tour. Is that something you like to do when you're on the road?
I'm a very slow reader, but I do like to read.
I'm with you there. It'll take me forever to get through a book.
I think I'm like an undiagnosed dyslexic, because I have a hard time.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to laugh at that.
No, I mean, I think I am, because there are certain, like, doubled letters I have a really hard time reading. I can't. I'm very bad at reading capitalized letters texted, and I'm super slow. Comprehension is not my. So a lot of times I have to read the same page over and over again. Yeah. It's a grueling process. So because of that, I don't often start books, because I know it's such a huge commitment.
Yeah.
To get through it, and if I don't like it, then but I do like it, and my favorite people are readers, and so I often aspire to it. But I think I was reading Lonesome Dove on that tour, which I love Lonesome Dove.
Yeah. Are you reading something now?
I'm reading, I think it's called The Greatest War or The Great War. It's about World War One.
Oh, right on. I've been playing Battlefield, so similar
Totally.
experiences.
Yeah, so you know.
Yeah, I'm getting my history lesson. I know all about the Monte Grappa battle, and that's about it, you know. But that's awesome.
Yeah, a little. I like history stuff. And things that are based in real life events.
Yeah, I was told, because I didn't like history when I was younger, and I was told by somebody a quote that I'm sure has been repeated by millions of people, but that if you don't like history, it's because you have a bad teacher, not because history is boring. You know?
Yeah, the stories are really incredible.
They are. But I think the thing has been, people think about history, and especially in school, they teach you like the dates and the, you know, the numbers and whatnot, but you don't really get in. I think what interests me in history is like learning how people dealt with, you know, like what was it like to live in a country that's affected by World War I, you know? So we might be there in a few years.
Yeah, well, like curriculums only teach you to memorize. That's the whole point of history in like grade school. And I took like an AP like Euro and AP like American, and they actually like delve into that stuff, and you can learn a little bit more beyond just like in 1842 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's like what you can hate the most, is that you have to memorize it and then present it to a test. You never learn. And then as a kid, when you're forced to memorize something, you're just like, oh, I'm just doing this to please somebody. I'm not doing it because I want to. And there's actually a great book. It's called Lies My Teacher Told Me. And they force you to read it for like an AP history course. But it tells you all the stuff that like your teachers were basically force feeding you is wrong. Or just like little things like that like now kids can find out on the internet or whatever. But it's a book that kind of, you know, it's one person's story that you're trying to learn.
Totally. And like the dates are completely Googleable.
Yeah.
But you know, if you can absorb a little bit of the cause and reaction of things that happened in history, you can take it with you for good use.
Yeah. I always enjoyed like diaries or transcripts or something from like somebody that was maybe sitting on like a ship that was going to war, or you know, Magellan like wrote down everything about like going around the world. And so stuff like that, because that's someone's testimony rather than a novel about it.
It's amazing how much of what we know is just from letters and journals.
Yeah.
That's so much of what we know. Like in the book that I'm reading right now, they say that they've been chronicling a relationship that happened, an affair that was kind of scandalous for several reasons, and that at one point they both decided not to burn their letters, and that's the only reason we know that this whole thing happened, which played lent very interesting stories to the war and to what was happening around culturally and everything. And it just, those letters are everything. And I wonder what that's going to look like. Like, what's that going to be in the next, because we have so much content now.
Yeah. Well, now like
it's almost, I wonder what they'll glean or what they'll take from all the cameras that are everywhere.
Right.
You know,
like
how will they,
the Twitter history of somebody.
how will the stories you
can have,
of course, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Hopefully my like great grandkids don't go through like my Snapchat or something, though. That'd be a little embarrassing.
But we have the benefit, which I mean, it's digital or whatever, and if it never touches the internet and it's just solely like maybe in your text or something like that, it can be deleted and you can destroy a hard drive, and it's just like burning letters. So yeah, we are more inclined to put our stuff on a platform that's going to feel like forever. But I think like we still have the benefit of destroying something if we don't want to, and you can't move on from something that's gone. Mm-hmm. So it still has like that, I don't know, I guess like importance of without this, you don't have this. But I mean, yeah, once it's on the internet, it feels like it's forever. So, you know, you can get lost in that.
Right. Be careful what you put on the internet is the moral of the story.
Careful, kids.
Yeah. So speaking of like lessons and stuff that you've learned, so as you said, you've worked with and seen so many amazing old school bluegrass players, and working with John Paul Jones and all these amazing people. What's the most interesting or useful tidbit of advice that you've learned from another musician?
I don't know that it would be advice or a sentence that they said. Or maybe I can't recall the right one, but I think what you learn is what I learned the most is just by watching other musicians and seeing, the choices that they make. There's a incredible musician named Greg Leese who is a pedal steel player as well as guitar and stuff, and he's in LA. He's done a lot of stuff with the Family Hour, but he's one of my favorites. And you learn so much just by watching him think through things, like learning a song, and you can see him processing, a chord progression. Pedal steel is a crazy instrument, so you have to think in different keys because of the way it's set up. And without knowing exactly what he's thinking, just like, you see people doing the math in their head, reconsidering what they're going to do, and processing it. And it's a very inspiring thing to see, because a musician I will never be the musician that he is. And it's fun to see the work that goes into the craft. That's the kind of thing that I love. Or you see people like Jackson who treat his crew so well and like are so, that are very good people, and you learn that kind of stuff, and you learn a lot just by, people who have figured out how to be musicians for a while are doing something right, because it's not an easy thing to do.
Not at all.
There's a lot that goes into it, so you can learn a lot just by watching them.
I'm so jealous. I wish I was on a first name basis with Jackson Brown. That'd be like life goals completed right there. If I could just refer to him as, my friend Jackson. That's amazing. So before we go, you're on tour now. The record came out last year. Is there another record on the horizon? What can we expect?
Record came out in July.
Okay.
I have other projects happening next year, but I'm still really focused on this album. We're in the middle of a month-long tour, basically just the halfway point. And so there'll be some festivals in the spring and summer, and a couple fun tours in the summer that are yet to be confirmed. But yeah, I really like getting to do different kinds of collaborations. It's fun to do this show where it is basically I'm the boss of the show.
That's always
and
good.
And then I get to do other things where I'm so not the boss, that I get to, be a supportive person and dig into the requirements of just playing a supportive role, or being in a band where it's completely democratic and collaborative. These are all things that require different things from you musically and also with your personality. And I love doing all of them. So I'm looking forward to doing more collaboration next year, because I'm getting a little tired of me.
Well, we're not getting tired of you, so keep putting out solo records too. Don't leave us hanging.
We'll do.
But that's awesome. Nice little tease here from the podcast. Sarah Watkins working on some collaborations. Vague exclusive. So right on. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. No problem.
Thank you for coming down to the States.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait to see the show. It was a little funky, you know. We would do a little, you know. Yeah.